Story of the ordinary girl in the dark forest. Once upon a time, there was an ordinary girl, or so she thought, that lived on the edge of a dark and mysterious forest. In her village, she was told never to venture into the forest, for there were great dangers there, that there was monsters and villains, and that she would become lost, and that the monsters that laid in hiding there would not only consume her, but would take it out on the village too. But this ordinary girl, or so she thought, was curious. Could it really be as dangerous as they said? I mean, how do they really know? For she never met anyone who could say for sure what laid behind the briar wall in the dark shadows of the forest. It was said that anyone who entered the forest never came back. So how could they really know? It was all just whispers, and if anyone even whispered about it, people would be quickly reprimanded. Then one day, she felt herself pulled to the edge where the warm, sunny meadow with the golden wheats blowing in the wind met that seemingly dark and unknown interior. She squinted her eyes and tried to gaze in. And what she saw wasn't so scary. There was something there, something glittering, and she could see a beam of sunlight that cut through that thick canopy of the trees, and it seemed to rest upon a very beautiful and radiant woman. She didn't know what to do as she sat there on the edge of the meadow, and that meadow that was safe and warm. Hummingbirds flitted about her, and then a flicker emerged from the woods and landed upon a branch nearby. And she remembered the whisperings of old grandmother, telling how the hummingbird represents renewed birth, and how the flicker arrives when new beginnings are near. And she looked around to make sure no one was watching her. She didn't want to get in trouble. And just at that moment, she heard the coarse sound of the crow, and she looked up to see it upon the edge of the forest, and it looked straight into her eyes. And then this crow motioned as if for her to follow, and flew into that dark forest interior toward that beam of light that lit upon that beautiful, radiant woman. Once again, she looked around to see if anyone was watching, but she couldn't contain herself any longer. And so she timidly stepped into the cool shadows. But the briar patch was thick and full of thorns, and it cut her and made her bleed. And so she at first doubted maybe she shouldn't enter. But something inside of her moved her forward. And once past the briars, the forest floor was soft, with a magical bed of moss adorned with blue star flowers. And she very gingerly, carefully walked toward that beautiful, radiant woman, walked cautiously towards her, still feeling a sense of fear, but something more. And as she walked towards that beautiful woman who smiled at her in such a familiar way, it was as if this ordinary girl, so she thought, knew her, like in a distant dream. "I've been waiting for you," the radiant woman said in a soft and confident voice that resonated with a deep inner connection. And the ordinary girl, or so she thought, felt envious and in awe with her voice. She sounded so strong, so connected. And this ordinary girl, or so she thought, said, "Do I know you? How is it you've been waiting for me? You look so familiar to me. Do I know you?" And the radiant woman smiled so softly with that great sense of familiarity. And she said, "Why, of course you know me, dear. I am you without all your fears and doubts. Remember back when you were a child? You had a grand vision of who you were and who you'll become. I am her, and you are me." The ordinary girl, or so she thought, right, asked, "But how can you be me? You are so beautiful and strong. I am but an ordinary girl." And the radiant woman, still smiling, says, "Did you notice how it felt when you took your first step through that prior wall as you moved into the forest? How did it feel to you?" And the ordinary girl, or so she thought, felt into that for a moment. She said, well, at first I felt scared, but then excited. And when I stepped through and was within the cool shade of the forest, I felt strong and brave. I knew as if something magical was waiting for me. And the radiant woman, said, "Yes, yes." And that strength and that bravery is you. And it is what you see and feel in me. The crossing into the unknown forest was just a test. And now that you have taken your first steps, you can see how you can now easily take more, and how with each step you will grow. And with each step you become stronger and braver and more confident. And the radiant woman told her, "You have been called so you can share your gifts with the world." Now the ordinary girl, or so she thought, still just in disbelief, trying to process all that is being said, she asked, "But what gifts do I have? I'm just an ordinary girl. I don't know what I could possibly share." And the radiant woman said, your gift, dear, is simply to be yourself. Our only task in this life is to be indigenously beautiful, indigenous of ourselves, indigenous of our earth, indigenous of the life path that we walk. Our only task is to be indigenously beautiful, promising we make ourselves spiritually full and delicious so as to feed the next ones to appear in this ongoing river of life after the occasion of our own passing. Our task is to become spiritually full and delicious. For when you step into the beauty of all that you already are and sing the songs that you hold in you, the songs of your love and your grief, the songs of your dreams and your worries, you then activate the sacred seed of life in others to be fully beautiful as they are. And that is your medicine, to be spiritually full, to be you embracing all that sings from your being so others are empowered to sing their own sacred seed songs. And remember, And remember, you are already whole. The ordinary girl felt into this, felt something begin to shift within her. And suddenly, she did not feel so ordinary anymore. She could feel her own magic inside of her. She looked back through the forest and into the warm, sunny meadow from where she came. And that sunny meadow, it no longer looked so warm. She knew she had just stepped through an imaginary veil for what seemed comfortable was really only a spell of complacency, keeping her confined from knowing who she truly was, who she truly is. When she looked back at the radiant woman smiled and took a step toward her and then right into her, so they became one. And in that moment, the radiant woman and the ordinary girl, who is now the radiant one, merged. And she felt it through every cell of her body, in her heart, in her mind. When she opened her eyes, in that moment, a beam of sunlight broke down through that canopy of the trees and revealed a path, illuminated by the warmth of that soft sun in the forest. And she took a step onto that path. And with each step, she felt lighter, stronger, and connected. And that path weaved through that forest and brought her back to her village. And truly, the one who entered the forest was not the one who returned. And she brought her gifts with her. She brought her spirit, being spiritually and deliciously full. And her gifts transformed all who were there, and they were all the better off for it. And that is the story of the ordinary girl, or so she thought, in the dark forest. Home.